Have you ever noticed that the moment you share a dream too early, it suddenly feels weaker? As if by speaking it out loud, you've placed it into the world's hands for judgment, doubt, or even sabotage. Think of the times you revealed a goal, only to find yourself slowed down, not by failure, but by other people's opinions, their pressure, their timelines. What once felt liberating suddenly became a chain. What if true strength isn't found in declaring your ambitions, but in guarding them, silently, patiently, until they are too powerful to be broken? Revealing your desire too soon is like walking into a game and laying all your cards on the table. What once fueled you privately becomes exposed, vulnerable to interference. Others can now shape it, delay it, or even use it against you. The truth is, the world doesn't reward open hunger. It rewards calm precision. The quiet builder who lets results speak louder than words. Real power isn't in grasping, but in restraint. Strength lies in being unmoved by what you cannot control. So before you voice your hunger, ask, do I need to share this, or do I need to master it? Because the one who contains desire controls it, and the one who controls it cannot be shaken. Every time you reveal exactly what you crave, you hand over a handle. You may believe you're being transparent, but in reality you've placed part of your future in someone else's hands. Once it's there, they can choose to help you, or slow you down, or guide you toward paths you never intended. Mystery, by contrast, offers nothing to grab. People rarely strike at what they don't understand. They strike at hunger, because hunger is predictable, and predictability gives them a blueprint. Once visible, desire becomes measurable. And once measurable, it can be managed, not by you, but by them. That is how advantage slips away quietly without you noticing. Negotiation works the same way. The predictable side is always weaker. The person who moves without revealing their next step is harder to stop. Blaise Pascal once wrote, "The less people speak of their greatness, the more we think of it." Silence has gravity. It draws attention without ever demanding it. And yet many reveal their desires too quickly, not because they want to, but because they crave reassurance. They want others to tell them they're on the right track, that their goals are valid, that they have approval. But that very need for validation is what gives away the handle. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." If you are always looking outward for confirmation, you hand over control of your path before you've even begun to walk it. Desire itself is not the problem. In fact, desire fuels creation, ambition, and growth. The problem is exposed desire, because exposed desire is fragile. It bends under timelines, doubts, and even insecurities that don't belong to you. Someone who knows how badly you want a role can make you wait. Someone who senses you crave their approval can ration it, keeping you chasing. Even those who mean well may unintentionally slow you down. That's why those who truly understand power rarely announce intentions. They protect their inner fire, not because they lack ambition, but because they know it burns brightest when shielded. The paradox is this: the less you speak of what you're building, the more freedom you have to build it. Withholding details gives you space to pivot without judgment, to fail without an audience, to adapt without pressure. Because once you reveal too much, people begin fitting you into a story they understand. They take your outline and start writing it for you. But when you reveal little, they are forced to guess. And in their guessing, you remain free. This isn't secrecy for secrecy's sake. It is ownership. Once your desire leaves your lips, it no longer belongs fully to you. It becomes open to interpretation and influence. Aristotle said, "The self-controlled person is free." Guarding your ambitions until they are strong enough to stand is self-control in action. And self-control creates freedom. Keeping desires contained gives you freedom to explore them without interference. You can change direction without explanation. You can succeed without being undermined, and you can fail without the world tallying your mistakes. The fire still burns, but it burns where only you can tend it. That doesn't mean never share your goals. It means share them only when disclosure no longer threatens the outcome. Think of the difference between someone who announces loudly, "I'm chasing this," and someone who simply arrives already holding it. The first invites commentary, distraction, resistance. The second commands respect. Nothing to argue, nothing to block, because the work itself speaks. This is the strength of guarding desire until it matures into reality. You bypass obstacles you'd otherwise fight. Because the handle you give others is always optional. You can hand it over or you can keep it. Once given, you cannot control how it will be used. The Stoics believed peace doesn't come from grasping every desire. It comes from mastering how you relate to desire, and the world will always test what it sees. If it sees hunger, it tests your patience. If it sees ambition, it tests your endurance. If it sees weakness, it tests your limits. But if it sees nothing, it has nothing to push against. The strongest position you can hold is when your motives remain yours alone, your actions deliberate, but your direction unreadable. Because once others can see what matters most to you, they can measure you by it. And what they can measure, they can manipulate. It's like carrying a treasure map with the X marked in red. The moment someone else sees it, your journey is no longer yours. Transparency without boundaries is an open invitation for interference. In life, knowledge of your desires is often power in someone else's hands. A partner who knows you can't bear to lose them may test boundaries. A colleague who knows you're after a promotion may undermine you quietly. It doesn't require aggression, just knowledge of your priorities. Knowledge becomes power. Carl Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Often, when you reveal your core motivations too easily, the struggles that follow aren't bad luck. They're the direct result of giving away too much information. Influence can be mutual and respectful. Manipulation is one-sided, serving the manipulator. When your priorities are too visible, you provide the raw material for manipulation. And people don't even need to oppose you outright. They can simply offer partial satisfaction, just enough to keep you moving. Over time, this erodes independence. You become reactive, waiting instead of creating. Strategic people often look calm, detached, unreadable. Not because they lack fire, but because they've learned the value of containing it. Aristotle said, "The more you know, the more you realize you don't know." That humility becomes a shield. It allows you to move without showing all your cards. When you appear unpredictable, you preserve the ability to surprise, to negotiate from strength, to move without resistance. A diamond in a vault isn't less valuable because no one sees it. Its safety preserves its worth. Likewise, your deepest priorities should be kept where they can grow in safety, until they're strong enough to face the light. Because not everyone will see your goals with your eyes. Some will project their fears. Some will resent your success. Some will bend you for their ends. Controlling visibility protects against these distortions. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Guarding visibility of your deepest motives is one way you keep that power. Openness is praised as noble. But real courage isn't reckless exposure. Real courage is the quiet decision to protect what matters until it's strong enough to stand. Words once spoken live outside your control. They spread, shift, and take forms you never intended. And sometimes what felt like bravery was simply exposure, leaving you fragile, because true strength isn't just in the speaking. It's in the waiting, the protecting, the choosing. It's in knowing that not all truths are ready to be carried outside. Some must be guarded like seeds in the soil, given time to take root before they break the surface. And when they finally rise, they will be far harder to uproot. Not because you hid them from fear, but because you had the courage to give them the protection they deserved. Hunger is something people sense before they see. It's in your tone, in your eyes, in how your body reacts when certain topics arise. People pick up on it instinctively, like an animal catching the scent of food on the wind. And once they recognize that hunger, the dynamic shifts. If they know you're desperate for approval, they'll ration it. giving you just enough to keep you coming back. If they know you're desperate for success, they'll dangle it before you, always just out of reach, keeping you moving on their terms. Even friends can do this without malice, not out of cruelty, but because it's human nature to respond to visible need. Where there's hunger, there's an opening, and openings are hard to ignore. The moment your hunger becomes obvious, it becomes leverage. Approval, opportunity, recognition, these can all be withheld, delayed, or granted on someone else's schedule. And often they may not even realize they're doing it. It's simply how people operate once they know what matters most to you. Seneca once said, "If you would be loved, love yourself." At its core, that wisdom means learning to be whole without leaning so heavily on things others can give or take away. Because the more others believe you cannot live without their approval, their opportunity, or their presence, the more power they quietly hold over you. Think about negotiations. If one side knows the other cannot walk away, the terms change instantly. The hungrier side accepts less, not because they want to, but because they fear losing everything. This dynamic isn't limited to business. It happens in relationships, in friendships, in careers. When hunger becomes too visible, you lose the ability to set boundaries, because everyone knows exactly how far you're willing to go. And in that imbalance, control slips away. This doesn't mean you should kill your hunger. Desire is the fuel that pushes you to grow, to create, to reach further than before. But desire without discipline leaks through your behavior. And when it leaks, it can be used against you. The most powerful people know how to contain that energy. They may want something as fiercely as anyone else, but they've learned to keep it behind a calm exterior. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about not letting your visible need dictate your actions in ways that give others control. You've probably seen this play out in social situations. The person desperate to be accepted overextends themselves. They agree to things they dislike. They laugh too hard at jokes that aren't funny. They bend their own comfort just to secure a place in the group. And what happens? The group senses the imbalance. Maybe not consciously, but instinctively, they expect that person to bend. The hunger for acceptance reshapes the dynamic. And the one who wants it most becomes the one with the least influence. In friendships, it works the same. A friend who knows you'll always say yes may begin to take more than they give. Not maliciously, but because the imbalance makes it easy. In love, if someone senses you cannot bear to lose them, they stop worrying about losing you. Hunger always shifts the balance of power. The paradox is clear. When you appear less hungry, you attract more. People are drawn to those who seem steady, content within themselves. There's a calm confidence in someone who doesn't chase approval, who could walk away and still remain whole. It's not arrogance, it's stability. When you can move toward something without showing desperation, you keep the freedom to choose on your own terms. Managing hunger isn't about hiding it forever. It's about timing and expression. There are moments to show enthusiasm, to state your goals, to extend genuine interest. But those moments are most effective when they come from choice, not need. If you can wait until you're standing on solid ground before revealing your ambitions, you make it far harder for anyone to use them against you. Because people always respond to hunger. Some will be generous, offering support. Others will ration encouragement to keep you dependent. And some will use it to build a structure where you're always the one chasing. The less your hunger dominates your presence, the more control you have over which response you'll receive. At the heart of it, it's not about denying what you want. It's about refusing to let it control the way you move through the world. Hunger should be your engine, not your leash. When you learn to contain your strongest desires so they don't show up as weakness, you change the game. You stop being someone who can be quietly redirected. You become someone whose direction is decided from within. And in that quiet shift, from visible hunger to contained strength, you reclaim the power so many give away without realizing it. Because the clearer your intentions, the easier you are to anticipate. And once you're anticipated, you can be countered. Life is not so different from a strategic game. If your opponent knows your next move, they've already started plotting against it. Predictability is the grave of control. It's where momentum quietly dies. People may nod, smile, even encourage you, all while adjusting their behavior to ensure you never move faster than they're comfortable with. That's why the person who seems to chase nothing, while quietly building everything, becomes so dangerous. No one knows where to block, because no one is certain where they're going. This is the paradox of subtlety. The less people can read you, the less they can stop you. Predictability isn't just about revealing your end goal. It's also about revealing your patterns. Maybe it's how you react the same way to certain challenges. Maybe it's how you announce every step, thinking it will inspire support. But over time, those patterns make you easy to track. And once someone can track you, they can start shaping the terrain under your feet. And here's the danger: it doesn't even take overt sabotage to slow you down. A subtle doubt, a well-placed delay, a small distraction, that's often enough. Think of competition in sports, business, politics. No team hands their playbook to the other side before the game starts. Not because they lack confidence, but because surprise is the one advantage that cannot be countered. Once it's gone, you've lost leverage. If people can't see your exact route, they can't lay traps along it. And if they can't lay traps, they have no choice but to react once you've already arrived where you intended to go. Philosophers understood this long ago. Arthur Schopenhauer said, "The wise have always said the same things, and fools have always done the same things." Predictable people repeat themselves. In repeating, they make themselves easy to control. When your movements can be mapped from your past behavior, others stop seeing you as a force to account for and start treating you as a variable they can manage. That's the danger of being too transparent. You become part of someone else's calculation. But unpredictability carries its own psychological weight. When people can't read you, they project, they imagine. They fill the silence with their own fears, hopes, or even admiration. And often they overestimate you. Their uncertainty makes them cautious, sometimes overly cautious. And in that hesitation, you gain freedom. This kind of control doesn't require force. It only requires restraint. But restraint doesn't mean hiding everything forever. Total silence can feel suspicious, even alienating. The art is in selective revelation, giving small hints, tiny signals that keep people interested but never certain. It's the balance between mystery and connection. People feel close enough to you to stay engaged, but not so close that they can predict your every move. And often predictability is born from the need for validation. We share our plans because we want others to believe in us. But the moment we depend on their belief, our pace ties to their approval. And if their approval shifts, so does our momentum. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, and your thoughts are of higher quality when they are not constantly bent by the reactions of others." Moving quietly allows you to think without noise. It frees you from defending every move, from explaining every step, from performing for timelines that no longer serve you. Once you become predictable, you're no longer steering your own course. You're playing inside a system designed by others. They know when to apply pressure, when to tempt you with shortcuts, when to hold resources back. But when you move in ways they cannot follow, the balance shifts. You force them to operate on your timing, to respond to you, not the other way around. That subtle shift is where advantage lives. When you reveal too much too soon, you risk building cages with your own words. And often those cages don't just limit how others see you. They start limiting how you see yourself. You can, of course, speak impulsively and let those words become a blueprint others will guard on your behalf. But in doing so, you surrender freedom for visibility. The choice is always yours: build a cage or build in freedom. Either way, construction begins with the very next thing you say. The person who appears to need nothing holds all the cards. That is because they possess something rarer than wealth, rarer even than influence. They hold freedom. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to choose without pressure. freedom to let opportunities pass without believing the door has closed forever. The moment you show need, the balance shifts. You trade leverage for hope. And hope, when placed in the wrong hands, becomes dependency. In that instant, you no longer control the game. You wait for someone else to decide how it will play out. People treat you differently when they sense you cannot afford to walk away. It's human nature. The seller raises the price. The employer offers less. Even in love, if someone believes you cannot bear to lose them, they stop worrying about losing you. Seneca wrote, "He who needs riches least enjoys riches most." This principle extends beyond wealth. The less you appear to need, the more power you hold in deciding how it enters your life. When your happiness and stability are not tied to a single outcome, you move from being controlled to being in control. Need is subtle. It seeps into tone, timing, the way you answer silence. It makes you agree too quickly, lower your standards, or rush decisions. And others notice. Ironically, many believe showing need will inspire generosity, but more often it inspires calculation. If you want it this badly, what else might you give up to get it? And suddenly negotiation shifts, not toward fairness but toward measuring what you're willing to sacrifice. To be clear, desire itself is not the enemy. Want fuels ambition, creativity, progress, but want that shows as visible need puts you in a weaker position. The difference lies in posture. You can want deeply while projecting the ability to live without it. That posture changes everything. It signals, "I choose this, but I am not owned by it." And the person who sends that signal becomes far harder to manipulate. That's why the ability to walk away is powerful. It's not arrogance, it's dignity. It's holding the strength to say no, even to something you crave, if the terms compromise your principles or your long-term well-being. The moment you believe you cannot walk away, you've surrendered your strongest position. Because need makes you predictable, and predictability makes you negotiable. If others know exactly what sways you, they will use it. They will stall until urgency forces you into less. They will sweeten the deal just enough to keep you hooked, without ever giving you what you truly deserve. But if they cannot read your breaking point, if they don't know whether you will wait, pivot, or move on, they are forced to treat you with respect. Uncertainty keeps you valuable. Building this posture begins within. It is not about pretending you don't care. It is about creating a life not dependent on one outcome. Diversify opportunities, strengthen skills, build self-worth on something deeper than one person's approval or one door opening. The less you lean on a single source to validate you, the less leverage anyone has over you. In relationships, this principle is real. When someone knows you'll tolerate anything to keep them, they'll test how far that tolerance goes. But when you carry yourself with the posture of "I want you, but I don't need you," the entire dynamic shifts. Respect grows, because they know you are there by choice, not dependence. The same applies in business. The entrepreneur who rejects bad investors waits for the right ones. The professional who says no to underpaid work eventually gets better offers. The negotiator who steps back from a wrong deal finds the better one waiting. This isn't luck, it's discipline. It's refusing to let need dictate decisions. In the end, the posture of needing nothing isn't about denying desire. It's about mastering it. It's allowing wants to fuel you without letting them chain you. The moment you realize you could walk away and still remain whole is the moment you stop being negotiable in the wrong ways. From then on, every agreement in love, in work, in life comes from strength, not fear. Silence plays into this strength as well. Silence forces others to imagine what you might be doing. They project fears, doubts, admiration. Some will imagine you're building something greater than you are. Others will worry you're planning moves they can't see. And in that uncertainty, you gain freedom. The less they know, the less they can interfere. The more silence you maintain, the more space you have to act on your own terms. When you speak too soon, you give away the shape of your plan. And once they see the shape, they start hunting for weak points. Even well-meaning people, offering advice or voicing concern, bend your vision in ways you never intended. Silence protects you. It removes distortion. It gives you space to build without interference. And in negotiation, silence is often the strongest move. The one who waits out the other side's discomfort gains the advantage. People rush to fill silence with concessions, explanations, or mistakes. Blaise Pascal once observed, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." The inability to sit in silence doesn't just affect solitude, it shapes interactions. Silence forces reflection, and reflection can make people overcompensate. But silence isn't secrecy for its own sake. It's strategy. It's not about isolation, it's about intent. Knowing when speaking serves you, and when it serves others at your expense. Strategic silence is deliberate, temporary, purposeful. You may be silent now so that you can speak later, when your words carry the most weight. The key is timing. Reveal only when it strengthens your position. In relationships, silence can reset dynamics. When someone grows used to constant reassurance, pulling back forces them to reconsider. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought, the person who holds something back becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability keeps people cautious. Discipline lies in resisting the urge to defend yourself when criticized, to explain yourself when misunderstood, to seek validation when uncertain. These urges are natural, but surrendering to them trades long-term influence for short-term relief. By holding back, you preserve leverage. Others are forced to fill the gaps, often giving you more credit than you could have claimed with words. Of course, silence is not a cure-all. There are moments when clarity and boundaries must be spoken. The skill lies in knowing the difference, when your voice builds your position and when it erodes it. Aristotle said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." When you know your tendencies, whether you reveal too soon or explain too much, you can use silence as a counterbalance. In the end, silence is a weapon because it creates space, and space is power. It's in that space that others wonder, overthink, and sometimes dismantle their own positions without you lifting a finger. It's in that space that you observe without being observed, plan without interference, act without warning. Because the truth is, a flame grows strongest in quiet. It is fed by focus, not distraction. By shielding your desires, you protect them from distortion. Advice, comparisons, fears, even when well-meaning, can bend your vision. Shielding keeps you the sole keeper of its direction, and when the world finally sees the result, they perceive inevitability. They see the outcome but not the struggle, the nights of doubt, the false starts. And because they cannot trace it back, they cannot dismantle it. Containment isn't suppression. You still feel the pull, the vision, the hunger. But you hold it steady behind glass until the moment it cannot be broken. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." That clarity cannot come from the crowd. It comes in silence. In restraint, the person who always reveals their next step loses freedom. Every change becomes a contradiction. Every delay looks like failure. Soon they are not adjusting based on wisdom, but adjusting to protect an image. That is how a player becomes a pawn, still moving but on someone else's terms. But when you hold your moves close, the pressure shifts. It's no longer on you, it's on them. They cannot predict you, so they hesitate. And hesitation is your room to advance. In chess, unpredictability forces the opponent into defense. In life, it gives you freedom, and freedom is where strength lives. The moment you stop needing constant approval, the moment you stop handing out maps to your intentions, you reclaim the game. You stop living as a pawn moved by others and begin shaping the board as a player. The seed kept in darkness becomes the tree that cannot be uprooted. The fire kept behind glass becomes the force no wind can touch. What you protect long enough grows into something undeniable. And when you finally reveal it, it is too strong to be broken. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The same applies to your goals. If they are not yet ready, Wait. Build first, speak later. And when you finally do speak, your words will not build a cage, they will open a door. If this message resonated with you, then perhaps it's time to guard your vision a little more carefully, to protect the fire that belongs only to you. Because the hidden power of saying less is not about secrecy, it's about freedom, discipline, and strength. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If you found wisdom here, don't let it end. Subscribe to Stoic Havenway, where we grow stronger together in discipline, in clarity, and in purpose. Watch the next video on your screen now, and keep sharpening your mind, while the rest of the world keeps guessing.